So welcome to this 7 Foundation online event. These are made possible by our partnership with Photo Wings, and we're grateful for their support. This is the latest installment in our Photo Editors series, and we're really thrilled to have Bridget Harris, who's Director of Photography Creative at Airbnb, with us from San Francisco. And of course, I'm joined by Ilvy. I really have been waiting a long time to get Bridget to do this. Because I think she brings a really unique perspective, having started in journalism and then ended up in commercial work. But marrying the two and seeing the intersections between them and the use of documentary style and commercial work. So I think there's a lot that people can learn from this convergence, as it were. So Bridget, thank you very much for partaking today. We're really looking forward to this. Just to start with, tell us, how did you get into photography in the first place? And did you ever imagine when you started that you would be working at a company like Airbnb?
Well, first of all, thank you both for having me. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really honestly like pumped to have this conversation with you. How did I start? I mean, I think like everyone in this field, we kind of like one day found ourselves with a camera in our hands, and we just kind of started playing with it. So there was a lot of that in the early years. My dad taught me how to use a camera, and I just kind of started to glob onto that. But it really wasn't until I started studying art and painting and drawing in college and high school and then college, where I then actually took a real photography class and just honestly fell in love with it. So spent most of my college years studying photography, art history, history of photography, taking pictures. And that was where I got my first internship at the Boston Globe newspaper photo department. So that's really where it started.
Right. And how did you what came after that, and how did you make the transition to the commercial world from the journalism world?
It was sort of happenstance, honestly. I mean, this just goes to show kind of the value of relationships and outreach. I was in Boston. I had graduated. I didn't really have a job, and I was sort of thinking what my next move would be, and started putting out feelers with friends I knew in New York. And my resume just kind of made its way to a producer in New York who reached out to me, and just happened to be that she actually was from the town where I went to college. And so that kind of stood out to her. And she invited me to New York to just start working for her as a production assistant. And so I spent a good chunk of time in New York getting people coffee, driving equipment vans, and being on photo shoot sets every day for a handful of years. And that was really where I started to learn about the commercial photography world, that it even existed, and all the different roles within that world, not just photographers, but producers, art directors, set designers, wardrobe stylists. All of those kind of elements were new to me. And I learned so much, and that's kind of where it started and then built from there.
Yeah. Let me put your presentation on the screen, because you've got a great presentation that you're going to talk us through, showing some examples of that work, and then up to Airbnb. And then Ilvy and I will drop in with some questions. And then for people in the audience, if you have questions, put them in the comments. We'll bring them in either during the discussion, or we'll certainly get to them at the end in a Q&A session.
Cool. All right. Well, so jumping right in, as I said, I wanted to start here, just offer a little bit of my background. In 2004, I got my first internship in the photo world at the Boston Globe newspaper. And it was actually really such a formative experience for me. That was the year the Red Sox beat the New York Yankees in the World Series. For the first time, they won the World Series in 86 years, breaking the curse of the Bambino. And it was also the year that the Democratic Convention was in Boston. I saw Barack Obama speak while I was running memory cards around to photographers on the convention floor. And it was the first time that I worked with journalists and really saw the impact of, photography as a medium for storytelling and the fast pace of images out. Sorry, I think I just had some audio backup. Really, honestly, just like you're out in the middle of the street with a photographer during the riots that came after they won, and then the next morning seeing their images in the newspaper. I just really loved that that power and that experience. And as I said in my intro, after this internship, I made my way to New York. I started working on photo shoot sets, really as sort of the person behind the scenes, making a lot of it come together. But through that experience, I was actually able to meet a lot of photographers, meet a lot of producers, and start really doing production on my own. And I did a lot of work with editorial photographers and commercial photographers, and really cut my teeth at organizing a lot of photo shoots of different types: celebrity, fashion, commercial. I worked in sports and alcohol, fashion, technology. So a lot of different clients where I would pull together the shoots really through a production lens. But in this time, I really got, as I said, a ton of exposure to the creative process, how commercial clients come up with briefs for photographers, how they collaborate with photographers on the art direction, shot lists, how they're going to make these pieces of communication come to life, and all the different people involved in doing that. So it was an extremely formative experience for me, and really at this point built a lot of relationships with photographers and creative people behind the scenes. Through that experience, I was actually offered the opportunity to move in-house at Time Magazine. I worked with Kira Pollock there for a number of years, and it was a really fun and exciting transition into news and true storytelling through the lens of journalism and culture and what was happening in the world. And really to work at a place like Time, where the kind of photographers who we were able to work with, both kind of very established names, but like up and comers, was really exciting to me. And it was the first time that I really had to think truly about how to visualize a story in a way that was compelling, that would resonate with people. And so after a number of years doing that, I really felt like that was actually the direction I really wanted to go in more, was leading creative, working directly with photographers, doing a lot more assignment style. One of the big projects that I worked on there, and I think I ended up getting this assignment, I think primarily because of my production background, was the Time 100. So I did a handful of issues of the Time 100, which is the 100 most influential people in the world for that year. And I just chose it as a bit of a case study of that time, mainly because the issue was really fun to put together. It was really interesting to read about all the people that made that list and really think about how to tell their story in photography in a way that felt cohesive and compelling. So worked on cover art direction with Kira, and really landed on the photographer who would shoot these iconic cover portraits. But then as well, working with art directors to kind of think through, how do we want to design the pages? What's going to be the most compelling way to marry all of this imagery? And, a really broad range of photography, production, and also editing and research, and working with photographers who'd already shot some of these people, and just finding the best imagery. It was huge project, and required sort of that left brain, right brain thinking that I carry into my work today.
Yeah. How,
Um,
how, how long would a project like that take? Because shooting 100 celebrities and trying to coordinate that in a period of time with a deadline
yeah.
a year, how long did that?
Mhm. Um, I think that we started talking about the issue maybe 4 or 5 months in advance and
Yeah,
thinking about who might be on that list. And then, for a package like this, there's sort of, a lot of thought that has to go into, um, what's the level of notoriety of these people and how many big names do you need versus how many, not everyone in this package is a celebrity. Of course, some of them are because
yeah,
celebrities do carry great influence, but the more fun and honestly challenging parts at times were, you know, uh, the scientist who developed a method of getting clean water somewhere that it had never been before and there never been photographed. It's hard to get a photographer there, things like that, like the range of what you define as influence made it really interesting. And honestly, the celebrity covers were in a way the easiest part. They're hardest to get access to these people, but once you have that access to them, working with a super pro. The photographer on these covers was Paola Kudaki, and she was just excellent to work with. And so it took a lot of time to put together, simply because there was 100 of them. But it was again a range of shooting, researching, assigning people to take pictures. It was pretty complex.
yeah.
And then after Airbnb is when I made my transition to, after Time is when I made my transition to Airbnb. I left New York and moved out to California, where I'm originally from. Uh, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't really I never had an ambition to work in tech specifically, but again, through sort of conversations with people and honestly, selfishly, like starting to think about being back in California to be near my family, this opportunity sort of emerged. And about a year of conversations and interviews and sharing of my portfolio later, I moved out to San Francisco and started at Airbnb in 2014. Um, and a big part of my role there as the photo director is one, like how do we show up as a brand in our product? Most of what people interact with Airbnb every day, or when they're actually using it, is the app. And it's really important that the visuals that show up in the app are, one, appealing. We want people to want to stay in these homes, but two, an honest reflection of these homes. Because unlike a lot of um, apps or tech companies and spaces that they occupy, Airbnb is a thing that goes from online to offline very quickly when people are traveling to a real place that they have to trust is going to meet their expectations. So I take that really seriously. Um, the other side of my job outside of product is I sometimes get to make really fun ads where we're shooting homes or shooting people traveling, or we do a lot of portraiture of our host community that's used in communication. So it's a real broad range of things that I do at Airbnb. And it's everything from our advertising, social media, product photography. It's kind of everything you see in the world, really.
It must be a blast to see something billboard size.
It is. It is actually. And I had never, before coming to Airbnb, I'd worked on billboards, but I hadn't really had to be part of the process of actually getting them to be printed in the way that I wanted them to be printed. And so it was a big learning, honestly, to have to take that on as well and go to press checks and see these things start to come out of printers at this size and checking color at this scale and giving feedback. It's pretty fun,
Yeah,
honestly. Yeah. So the sort of Airbnb case study I wanted to get into, and what we talked about, David, and kind of why we're here, is really I wanted to share a bit about the evolution of our brand photography aesthetic. I have this kind of news and journalism background combined with this commercial background, and in all of my background, having shot like so many different types of things with different types of people, it was really exciting to come to something like Airbnb that was just getting started, and to be a real problem solver in helping develop what we wanted our photographic tone of voice to be as a brand. So when I started in 2014, Airbnb had just rebranded. I don't know if you remember, our logo used to be a little blue Airbnb kind of written in cursive. And this moment in 2014 was when we introduced the new logo, which is sort of a red, like a red background color and a white little, we call it the Balo. It's like a little swirly A. And along with that rebrand, the team that was already at Airbnb had done this mega rebrand shoot with a photographer named Emma Hardy, and they had traveled around to many parts of the world and tried to show travel and different homes. And this was very early days. So this is kind of when I started, this was really the foundation of the brand photography aesthetic, what had kind of what I sort of inherited with the team and what was really our jumping off point. And the challenge with this shoot was, that it was a massive production, had a big library of photography. But what I found was that because the company was so new and we were trying to put so much communication out into the world, you quickly run out of pictures, even when you think you have a lot. And you also start to see the gaps in the library that you have, because you're expanding into different countries with different cultures, with different range of the types of people that you want to show. Like diversity means different things in different places. Our product was evolving a lot. New homes were coming onto the platform. It was very early days. So some of the homes that we photographed for the rebrand, were on Airbnb and then would be off Airbnb, which is still a problem. Like people host, but maybe they don't want to host forever. So sometimes you do an amazing shoot and 3 years later, you're like, oh, I can't use those pictures anymore. So, what I realized was we had this vast library, but there wasn't really a plan on how it would be maintained or updated, or how it would continue to be sort of replenished. So that was one of the first things that I did, was I sort of came up with this approach where I would sort of go to all of my internal partners and I would ask, what are the types of pictures that you need the most? What types of homes do we want to feature? Are there new markets that we're branching into? How can I get ahead of producing work that's going to show what the Airbnb experience is in the places we need it, the way we need it to be shown, to also include our values like diversity, making sure we were always keeping like a global approach. And so I started to plan these big shoots every year, and we would try to do it sort of in this contained documentary way. But I would say, even looking back on these pictures, they almost are starting to feel dated to me, because this is just so far away from where our aesthetic has gone, but really trying to move the needle even more to an authentic sort of documentary style.
And were you using American photographers, European photographers traveling, or local photographers, or a mix?
In this instance, I was working with one photographer who was actually my one full-time person that I had who worked with me, and we would travel. We would go all over and we would do these shoots, and we would work with local production companies. We would have obviously only real hosts and homes. And then we would cast real families, real groups of friends, anything that would really like keep that authenticity and that natural vibe. So everyone you see here is like real friends or real family. And we would sort of,
That's a little too.
Simultaneously, as I was doing that, this project came kind of onto my plate, where we wanted to launch this feature in 2016 called Neighborhoods, where we we wanted to give people using the app an idea of what the sort of vibe of every neighborhood was where they were booking. And so it was a very ambitious project. I think it was like 25 cities and every neighborhood in those cities. So if when you do the math, it was something like 600 neighborhoods. And I was like, how am I going to do that? That's a lot of neighborhoods. And also in an instance like this, how could I possibly art direct the essence of 600 neighborhoods when I have not been to most of them? How could I, as someone in San Francisco, tell someone in Amsterdam, Ilvy, like how tell you how to capture your neighborhood? That's sort of backwards, So this was a moment where I was sort of like, okay, I think the key here is going to be working with people who actually live in these places, live in these cities, who know these neighborhoods, and really see if they can go around, shoot like different times of day, kind of avoid touristy areas mostly, really make it feel like the neighborhoods that they're occupying. And so all of these people in these images are just real people going about their lives that we had photographers do their best to document, get permission to take their photo. And it yielded this incredible body of work that just felt like sort of an unlock for me in my brain on how we could actually work more authentically with hosts and different homes and communities and different travelers, rather than sending one or two photographers around the world. So that sort of, took us into this, what I roughly put as my 2016 to 2019 era, where we really started having photographers do exactly that. We would say, we would love for you to spend a day with a host, tell us about their story, get portraits of them, shoot the home, shoot their Airbnb, like show me what's special about their way of hosting. And we developed this really, really special, really beautiful library of this host community. And it was very, I'll say cost effective. I think the results were better. They felt more real. They felt more true and honest. And again, like sort of thinking about where we started, this felt like one like click further even into that documentary space, and feeling really real and relatable. And, a lot of that photography ended up in a library that was ultimately what we would pull from for most of our communications. It would be landing pages, it would be social media, it would be advertising. Airbnb magazine was alive at the time. Unfortunately, COVID killed Airbnb magazine, RIP. But it was a really fun time when we had a magazine out in the world. And so this work also helped to kind of fuel the online presence that magazine was trying to cultivate at the time, which, to have an online presence requires so much content that it was actually a great way to help kind of boost engagement with the magazine. So then COVID happened. It's very sad. We all remember this. And all of this kind of came to a screeching halt. We had photographers working with people out in the real world. I mean, not only did that come to a screeching halt, Airbnb was sort of like, is Airbnb coming to a screeching halt? This was, this was an article in Wired, April 2020. And I will say this was a very low point in my time at Airbnb, when we all were sort of like, oh, is this the end? I had spent at this point, 6 years really building this brand. And so it was kind of a scary moment. But Brian, our CEO, who is honestly such an inspiration in so many ways, he and leadership made the call that this is when our Airbnb would go public. So we in order to do that, needed to actually come up with a lot of visuals and communication to help like go through the IPO process, which was new to me. And so one of the things we had to do was show why Airbnb has value, what makes Airbnb special, what's going to make it last. And Brian came to me and said, I think one of the ways that we can do this is through photography. And what I want us to do is really show the value of Airbnb through the emotional aspect of it, through what travel and what this community of hosts offers. So knowing we were in a pandemic and I couldn't have people like strangers meeting each other, I sort of had to step back for a minute and think, how am I going to do this? And what we discovered was that actually people kind of needed travel at that moment more than ever. And I had this community of photographers that I worked with all the time who were just kind of always on. And I reached out to 10 of them and I said, hey, would you want to go take a trip in an Airbnb and document it, go with your family, go with whoever your COVID pod is, like do it safely, but take a trip, do it your way, shoot it like you're shooting your own personal like travel diary. Don't shoot it like you're shooting it for me. And I will say that was probably the biggest turning point in how we approach our work that has lasting impact. The images that came back just were so special and intimate and real. And I think I had an insight in this moment that that making work that felt like it was coming from a brand telling you how to feel would never be as compelling as work that actually showed like the real experience of someone feeling these feelings or having these moments. And so this has really been what is, I would say, our aesthetic that was established at that moment and has held true over the last handful of years, 5 years now. Wow.
Yeah.
This is really like looking at a family album in like the best way. You really want
to be. Exactly. And sort of I love that you sort of, because this has been the way that we've approached it for a handful of years now. To me, I see Airbnb in this, but only because it's sort of like our brand photography has now almost become that. It's been like a collection of family albums is almost how I feel about it. That's a great way to put it. This is an example of just one, I put together a board of one shoot. So this photographer, Paz, who's amazing, she's in Chile, and she went and stayed in this geodesic dome in the desert and documented it. And it's just so lovely and so human. And one of the ways that this type of shoot shows up is this kicked off really like how we did TV commercials for a handful of years. We would send people out, and these are the storyboards from the TV spot that ran, that Paz shot. And, if you look it up, if you Google, or you look on our YouTube, you can see some actual real examples of this, but we couldn't show them here. But, we have these shoots come in, and our team here goes through and sort of finds the red threads, like the interesting storylines. We probably cut about 50 different attempts, trying different songs and different image sequences and what's the right vibe. And then eventually land on one, and that makes it out into the world. And then, on these shoots as well, we can't lose sight of what it is that we offer, which is the home. And so we also have the photographers do a real deep study of each of the houses that they stay in. And sometimes those end up in really fun, playful little billboards, So we started with this Made Possible by Hosts campaign, which is what, went out into the world during COVID. And Sean Davey shot one for us with her daughters, which was a really, really sweet story. And I think this is also a really good example of where we're not, really it's about finding photographers who make compelling work and asking them to kind of take a trip and do it through that lens, not with me telling them what to do.
So that really allows for different styles, right? As in compared to slides you showed from one photographer going, you can really
exactly
feel the vibes.
Yeah, and it's been really fun to sort of adapt the use cases for this. Airbnb is a sponsor of the Olympics, and so we got asked to do a few spots that sort of highlighted that partnership, and so we sent I think it was 7 like groups of Olympians to take trips and had photographers go with them. This was an interesting this introduced a little bit of a challenge in that, like, historically, part of that intimacy that you get was because photographers were traveling with their own friends and family, which I think really breaks down that like wall that can sometimes be hard to break through when you're trying to get intimate with people that you don't know. But it was actually really great to see how the photographers, they stayed with these Olympians in the houses and they really embraced the assignment. And I think we still got some of that looseness that we really wanted. And then we've also adapted it for different regions. You know, a lot of our work is done globally and the media is localized. And we did a whole campaign in Japan last year where, you know, Airbnb is really not so prevalent in Japan yet. And so we wanted to kind of put some television spots out in the world to advertise Airbnb. And so only working with Japanese photographers, you know, traveling with their friends and family, staying in Japanese homes. So it's been fun to also, for me, you know, work with people in all parts of the world and have to find and surface new talent to work with us in this way has been great. Yeah, and that's sort of the end of my visuals part of the conversation. These are
well,
like
we've got a couple of questions from the
yeah.
audience that I'll bring in about the visual part.
Let's do it.
This is a technical one, but it's interesting.
So curious how Airbnb does their asset management. So we have a very talented asset management team, and we have a huge dam. And so on the back end, it's it's a very similar interface to like a Getty Images, you know, where everything is when we do these shoots, they're ingested and tagged and organized such that we can very easily find them and edit through them and share them with the different teams within Airbnb that might need them. The teams within the creative team, so art directors especially, will always get access to all this work. And so yeah, we have a massive library, and it's not, every shoot we've done since 2014 is tagged and stored.
Yeah. Question from Helene, formerly of this parish. Nicely with us, Helene. Good question.
The visual language on Airbnb and what you've shown in your slides is a very consistent look and feel. I'm curious, working with so many photographers. Great question. I think, I would say there's sort of like, a spectrum of styles that fit within our first person point of view, documentary style approach. There's also other things that we need to shoot, such as interiors and architecture photography and portraiture. So sort of each of those kind of realms of Airbnb photography have a bit of their own essence that I look for. It all has to kind of like harmonize together. I would say I am, in the instance of some of this photography that I've shown you, looking for people who do have a bit of a documentary background, or at least a very strong sense of storytelling. And I was saying to David yesterday, or whatever day it was that we were just kind of prepping for this, I really, I'm very interested in someone's personal work. I'm very interested in what you do when you're not on assignment, what really compels you, what types of stories you're naturally drawn to telling, because I think that that's a really interesting thing for me to know if I'm going to send you out into the world without an art director to fend for yourself and come back with great pictures. So I look for a real personal point of view and what really like motivates you creatively. I definitely look for documentary, honestly, because what I need in order to make this type of work successful is creative problem solvers. You know, it's not like going on a shoot with an art director and a full team where you've got like a team of people there to like, you know, what do we want to do with this shot? We could approach it this way. Let's do it that way. And then creating that circumstance. It's really about, okay, I'm here in real time with people and I want to show a real experience. So is it someone who can shoot in that way successfully when it's all happening in real time? So that for me is pretty critical for some of the brand photography work.
And do you then also tell them kind of, oh, we want this look and feel? As in some of the images had this, it's not a filter, I think, but it seemed like a specific kind of editing, but that's really up to the photographer, or do you?
Yeah, so what we do is it's not like a total blind go out and come back. What we do is we spend a lot of time with the photographers before they go out on the shoots, briefing them on you know, what you would traditionally call a shot list, but I prefer to call it like a story arc, you know, because what I don't want to do is say, shoot the car and then shoot the luggage and then shoot breakfast, you know, like I don't want to be so prescriptive, like shot by shot. But what I say is like, shoot a trip from beginning to end. These are the critical elements that I need you to capture: an arrival, like the home, intimate moments, like the beats of the trip. You know, it's really more of a story arc with these buckets, but like within those buckets, have fun and play and do it your way in your tone of voice. And I still hold true to that kind of original briefing, which was, don't shoot it like you're shooting it for me. Shoot it like you're shooting it for you, because that's really what's gonna make it successful. And a lot of photographers come back and they shoot both digitally and film, you know, or they'll have some have actually, I mean, even just the choices that they make in terms of when to use some fun on-camera flash and when not, and how to just bring some life and energy into the stories. It's been really fun. I mean, a lot of these moments that come back, I could never art direct. Like I could never conceive of some of these pictures, you know, it's like the person who is there, like at that moment with that sunlight, with their children or with their mom or whatever, you know, it's just, I could never conceive of some of the moments that have come back. And that's really been the most special. One of those first shoots that came back, I'll remember I was going through the edit and the photographer, his name is Cole Barash, and he had a 2-year-old. I think she was 2 at the time. And I'm going through the edit and it's like they arrive and they're bringing their bags in. And then there's this shot of his 2-year-old just launching herself onto the bed and she's completely blurry, flying through the air. And I never would have told him, get that picture. But it's someone who's finding those moments and going for it. And then the pictures come back and I'm just grinning. It's fantastic. So
how do you then edit? Because I can imagine they spend quite a bit of time on these shoots.
Yeah.
So on average, how many images do they bring back, for instance? And do you have to cut it down, or do you upload everything into that system that we discussed? Or
yeah, generally we send them for 2 nights, and that way it really gives like ample time to be, it's really follows like the real rules. So it's like check-in time to check-out time usually. And then, or we'll work with the host to like buy more time, you know, so there's enough sunrises and sunsets and, you know, but we make sure it's like at least 2 nights. And so it's usually a couple thousand photos, you know, that come back. And we definitely want to hear the photographer's favorites. So we'll ask them to do their own edit. But I have a team of, you know, we ingest the shoot. I have a team of art directors whose job is to sort of edit those shoots and come up with mood boards of some of like the key, really special moments. And then that's sort of like our cheat sheet for the shoot, really. It's like, this is kind of the essence. And then there's a link. This is pretty like specific, but there's like we always have a link in these mood boards that take you to the entire shoot. So everyone can just really go through and really mine for like the best moments to tell the story. And then when we're making the TV spots, multiple creative teams of art directors and copywriters will go in there and they'll just kind of start concepting different storylines, like different music. And it's a fun process.
Yeah, I can imagine putting that whole puzzle together.
Yeah.
I think there's some more questions coming in, but
Yeah, it's okay. I'm watching those.
Oh, you're on them. Okay.
I'm on the questions.
Okay.
But I've got one. I'm very curious about, say, particularly like the billboard campaigns for the TV spots and when these images go out into the world as a story.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think about the effectiveness and impact of a campaign?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have particular metrics you look at? Does that influence the way you think about the direction of the campaign? Because a lot of advertising people say, well, I've wasted 50% of my budget, but I don't know which 50%.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit of it's more art than science in those things. So how do you think about effectiveness, impact, and measuring those things?
I honestly,
or do you need to think about that? Yeah.
So we do to a point, and we have a really, really strong and really smart marketing team. I work with some really smart and creative marketers who really value creativity and the creative process. So I feel really lucky, and the people that we work with are really invested in. And I would say this. I mean, I've been at Airbnb so long, I don't know totally how other companies work, but I get the sense that it's not like this everywhere. We're very good at tracking insights and metrics, but we don't make them the sole reason why we put work out or the driver of how we make the work. And so I think there are moments where, the marketing team will, gather the insights, gather sort of how many people have seen it, and really think about what was the goal of this campaign, and has that, how are we tracking towards that goal? So it might be, in Japan, for example, it might just simply be how many people are going to Airbnb.com after we launch those TV spots. How many people are getting that it's, Airbnb is a company where you can rent homes, and going to the website. Like that might be the metric that we're trying to achieve. Other metrics might be, well, I guess one example of like some learnings that helped inform some of the TV work is, someone who's been living and breathing Airbnb forever, I know that we offer homes, but some people don't know what we are. And so actually it's really important in these TV spots to not lose sight of like the thing that you actually want people to remember you're, selling them, which is the home, but also this entire experience. But what we found in some of the early TV spots that we were concepting, and they didn't ship for this reason, was sort of like, oh, but where's the home? Like if you leave the home and you show people going to the beach or going hiking, it's sort of like it becomes more about travel than about Airbnb. And so there is that distinction of, are we selling or promoting just the category of travel, or are we trying to help people remember we have these amazing homes that have amenities and, are spaces where you can have intimacy and warmth that are different than hotels, for example, so just keeping in mind what it is that you're really trying to communicate.
That's what I thought about the original aesthetic that you showed that you inherited.
Mm-hmm.
Those images looked like good but generic travel images rather than Airbnb related images. Was that something that struck you, and was that one of the reasons that you wanted to change them?
I mean, I think that I honestly think that at the time that work was really compelling in the category of travel and in the tech category as well, like a brand that was a tech company really trying to show like humanity and belonging was a big part of our message at the time. And I wouldn't say that I was really like, oh, I need to move us away from this. It was more like, okay, how do I scale this? And then through that process, started to sort of pick apart the ways that that really was a jumping off point rather than something that we should fully like carry through. It felt like, again, some of the gaps were like in diversity or breadth of location, geography, not showing as much touristy stuff, and really trying to promote more of the local vibe. Like those were just things that I think were natural learnings from using the material. And I would say that's actually a really important part of my process as well now too, is sometimes these shoots come back and we'll tell you they're not like perfect every time because we're taking this loose approach. Yeah. There is risk in that. And so when pictures or shoots come back, I'm really invested in making sure myself and my team like looks through them and sort of thinks through like, what did we miss or what are the gaps? Like what could have been better? And so I think that that's honestly also a big part of how it's evolved over time. Aesthetically, it's just like, how could it be more real? How could it be, more intimate? How could it be better?
Here's a topical and important question.
Is there a talk or experiment in tech sector for the use of AI for creating visuals for the brand? Hard no.
I'm happy with his answer.
Yeah. So tech broadly, sure. Like I'll say I don't work at other brands, but I know that other brands, I think particularly ones that are selling like an actual physical product, I think CGI and AI are definitely like routes that that companies are taking to create their, photography. I just think that would never happen at Airbnb. I think, and nor would I ever want it to. There's
over your dead body then.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think
that will be the end.
I think Airbnb really stands for these real experiences. That's the reason why you would go for an Airbnb instead of a place to stay, and then to use AI. Yeah, it would be a bit counterintuitive, I would say.
I think we have such a responsibility to people, back to kind of what I said earlier, it translates to a real experience in the real world that people have. And I think that to veer into a place where we're faking things, I mean, we retouch obviously like certain things, but even in that, I really see a huge part of my job as sort of gatekeeping how far that goes and making sure it's not pushed too far in a place where things feel fake or unreal. And I just don't see that as something that Airbnb specifically would ever get behind for the reasons Ilvy brought up.
Yeah, I want to get to some of the practical things in a second, but just a final question for the moment. How large is your team?
How large is the team? It ebbs and flows. There's photography kind of encompasses, I would say, like the creative roles, really more like photo creative directors, photo creative leads, photo art directors, and then we have photo producers, like executive producers, production coordinators, and then there's post-production retouching where we have post-producers and in-house, like kind of more retouching specific art directors and retouchers. And then, the creative team, I would say in sum, all of those people, we kind of bring talent in and out sometimes too when we have moments where there's a lot of projects. So I would say it probably ranges between 30 to 50 at any given moment people. And and then photo creative, I would say specifically, is the team that really is embedded with these work streams, bringing in the right photos, the right photographers, writing the creative briefs. The producers kind of bring it to life, and work obviously with outside production partners too as needed, production companies. And then our post team we have a whole kind of slate of great retouchers and freelancers and companies that we work with just to achieve the volume of work. Yeah, it's a lot.
And in 2014, you said earlier that you had one staff photographer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's all freelancers now.
Yeah, we don't have any staff photographers anymore. It's all freelancers at this point. Yeah.
So I'm guessing there's many freelancers right here with us now who are very curious what type of, well, they could see from the images what type of photographers you're looking for, but I'm sure they would also like to know how they could, first of all, get in contact with you, but also what you're looking for in the sense of when they would reach out to you, how can they stand out?
Yeah, I mean, people reach out to me all the time. So this is a really good question. I think the things that stand out to me most are, and I've sort of summarized them a bit here, but I think one, be true to yourself and your work. Don't try to be someone else. Don't, try to sell me on, I can do everything and look at, I can do houses and portraits and documentary. Like, if you can't, just tell me the thing that you really love to do and show me that. Craft is super important. The quality of the work that you choose to show me. I think a lot of people think that being a generalist will get you more work, and that can be true if you are really good at everything. But if you're not, it's actually kind of a turnoff. So I would say, if you're excellent at portraiture, show me that. If you're excellent at documentary, show me that. And then do your homework. I think, when people reach out, I hear a lot of, I think I would be great for Airbnb. And then the work they show me is just not even anywhere in our vernacular. And so I think really showing me that you understand our brand and the work we do, by showing me work that, kind of aligns with that, is really important. Mm-hmm. I think it's okay to be personal, and the mass mail that I get all the time, I really just kind of ignore. But if someone takes the time to write me a message and show me why they want to work with me and why I should want to work with them, it really goes a long way. And those are usually the types of emails that I share out with my team and keep everyone informed. And it's great to include your website or a PDF. It's really great to have a PDF that feels like here's my work specifically that I want you to look at, versus just sending me a link. And then I think, be open and be flexible. I can only speak for Airbnb here, but we have hosts and homes all over the world, and we're always in production. And I think, it might be that we need something shot, tomorrow or next week. And like, sometimes we'll find you and reach out, and it's just like, be open. I think actually, I would say the people on this call, I'm assuming, are mostly photojournalists or journalists. And I think what I would want to say is, like, don't underestimate the value in your skill sets in the commercial space, honestly. There's times when I feel bad reaching out to someone like, hey, it's Tuesday, I have a shoot this weekend, are you around? And then I have to check myself and remember that a lot of people on this call will get calls like, can you shoot something this afternoon and have it live on the New York Times by 3:00? So it's sort of the ability to work quickly, to jump into action, to be sort of a solo person with a camera in a situation that is unfolding live in front of you is really, really valuable and a marketable skill. And I honestly, what's been really fun for me in developing this work and this network and community of photographers over the last, now 11 years is that I really value journalism and I value the work that you all do. And so I feel really lucky to be in a position that I might be able to offer commercial work that, obviously pays a little bit more and might be like a little bit less intense, honestly, than a lot of the work that you do as well, like a refreshing type of assignment. And I think that I see it as my responsibility to nurture photojournalists and storytellers. And I think the work that you all do is so important that if I can offer work that helps make you able to make that work or continue to make work, that's really special to me. So.
Wow, Bridget, I think
Special to us
everyone's
too.
yeah, that's beautiful that you also realize that for all of us in this call, I'm sure photojournalism is very close to our hearts, but it's also not the easiest industry to be in, right? So we definitely,
Yes.
these kinds of opportunities are super important.
Yeah.
So I'm sure people would love to reach out. Do you mind sharing? Can we share your?
Bridget's
Yes.
email is at the bottom there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got my email here on the bottom.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Also, like I'm on Instagram. I don't do any other social, but Instagram I do. And so feel free to reach out to me there too. And thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much.
One final question, which I think is a really good one to end on, which is will probably take you back to your younger self.
Okay.
Even younger self, I should say. Oh, not that one. Apologies. We've asked for that one. It's from Akash.
Any advice to a student?
Always a really difficult question, but right at the beginning, thinking about your beginning, what would your advice to someone beginning now be?
I think my advice would be, I didn't grow up in I didn't know that this kind of work existed. I didn't really know that this type of career could happen, or even the idea of being a professional photographer. Like it wasn't kind of like my parents had very normal jobs, and I think that the idea of being a creative or a creative director sounds so cool and like niche, and like not a lot of people could do that. And wow. And so I think that can be really intimidating. And I think being a professional photographer or working photographer is the same. It's very hard. And I think it seems like, could I ever do that? And so my advice would be to ignore that voice of doubt or question in your head. I think it's easy to have imposter syndrome when you don't come from a world where the people around you are doing this type of work and it's natural to you. And so I think quiet that voice, go for it. And whatever you do, whatever level that you're at, and this kind of goes back to my craft practical advice here. I was saying this to someone yesterday. When I was getting coffee for people on those shoots when I was, 20, I was great at getting coffee, and I always did it with a smile on my face, and your order will always be right. And it's just, it doesn't matter what level you are or where you're at, like do it to your best of your ability. Try to stay positive. People will like be attracted to that and help you. So yeah, no imposter syndrome. Whatever you're doing, be awesome at it.
Brilliant.
Perfect. That's great.
Perfect advice. Perfect place to end. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time. It's been fantastic. I think there's lots of comments coming in, people thanking you for really taking a deep dive insight into what you're doing and the process and so on. I think it's really informative for people, and I imagine they're going to come back and watch this again and take a lot of lessons away from it. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thanks everyone for coming.
Yes, and yes, thank you very much for the audience. As someone says, you can't hear, but I'm clapping.
I love that. Thanks, JP.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.